Swim check 1, 2. Bike check 1, 2. Run check 1, 2. I think we're ready. Let's try this. Welcome to the Try Beginner's Luck podcast, a podcast where we explore the sport of triathlon from a variety of perspectives to help beginner triathletes on their journey. I am your host, Mashonda Shines. Well, welcome back to another edition of Try Beginner's Luck. This is still your transition area. My name is Mashonda Miles, also known as Mashonda Shines, your host. And we've committed here this season to decompress and not distract. We aren't turning a blind eye to reality, but we are choosing not to let it drain our batteries. We're going to control the controllables. We can't fix the whole world at once, but we can control our effort, our kindness, and our community. And of course, we're going to fuel the fire. I'm here to provide you with really good stories to help you cross your personal finish line, regardless of what's happening on the sidelines. So we're going to recognize the struggle, refuse to contribute to the noise, but focus on the miles ahead. And so I love a good connection. And this week, on upcoming Sunday will be Father's Day. And so we have a special Father's Day episode. We kicked off the month with Mike Nyman and him having 3 kids all under the age of 5. Wow. Him doing his own self-supported Ironman when the world shut down in 2020. But I have another father who's actually just starting out. And what I find curious is his mom was telling me his story at a recent race. And I said, wow, well, this sounds very cool. And to be a dad and starting something new is not always easy. And just being a man in general and starting something new. But that's what happens when life finally unfolds and you say yes to challenges that quietly keep calling your name for years. So today's guest is a certified personal trainer. He's a nutrition coach, a music artist, and founder of No Plateau Zone. And most importantly, he's a father committed to living a life full of purpose and intention. After years of encouragement from his uncle, a simple goal written down that started earlier this year in 2026, he stepped into the world of triathlon through the Y-Tri community, and he has not looked back. Starting this journey in February, he has already completed 2 sprint triathlons, proving that sometimes the biggest breakthrough happens when you're willing to start. So whether he's helping others improve their health, creating music, or showing his daughter what it looks like to prioritize spirituality, physicality, and mental well-being, he's committed to living one powerful belief. The only plateau is in your mind. We get to welcome a newbie. So please welcome to the Try Beginner's Luck audience, Brandon Woolfolk. Brandon, how you doing?
Great, Mashonda. How are you? Thank you. That was an amazing introduction.
It's what I do. It's what I do.
Wow. Thank you so much. And I'm feeling great. I'm fortunate and blessed to be able to be on and in your presence and just to have this opportunity to speak about what the experience has been like and what it's been like being a father through the process.
Yeah. And I think what I really want to hit on, Brandon, is you've been seeing signs for years to join a team. And all of a sudden this year, your uncle tells you about it. He's like, you should do this. And all of a sudden you say, now is the time. What made this year so special to want to conquer the goal of completing your first triathlon?
You know, to be honest with you, I really don't know. I really feel like a lot of times our spirit leads us at the right time. So it's really something I feel like that was out of my scope of understanding. To your point, my uncle back in the spring of 2023, I had just finished doing, matter of fact, it was the summer. It was June of 2023. I had just finished doing a Savage race down in Charlotte. That was June 2023. I finished doing that Savage race, and I had made a post on social media about it, and I was showing my stats and everything. And my uncle, he's big in that athletic world as well, because when he was in high school, I think he was ranked in the country for wrestling, actually. He was ranked in the country for wrestling. So that was his sport. And I believe he did football as well. So he's big into athleticism, always been that way. And so him watching my journey has, I guess, kind of inspired him. He's a big supporter of everything I do in that athletic realm. And after him seeing me do that Savage, after him kind of seeing my physique and what I trained it to be for that, after him seeing the stats, he was like, nephew, I'm so proud of you. You know, he said, but you know what you should sign up for? And I said, what? He said, you should sign up for a triathlon. That's the true test of an athlete right there. If you sign up for a triathlon, I think that's when I really give you your props. So he was giving my props before, but it was that he was really trying to get me to push for. So to your point, it took me a couple years for me to finally start contemplating on it. I work part time at the YMCA in DC, and I've always known about the Y Try community, and but it wasn't until I think toward the end of last year I started seeing the flyers about the meetup to for people that were interested in doing the Y Try for this season that we just finished doing. And something in my spirit just led me to it. At this point, I had done so many 5Ks, 10Ks, 10 milers. I had done numerous obstacle course races. And this year, my spirit said, I want to do something new. I want to push myself in a different way this year. And so, yeah, I guess that's my answer. I think that my spirit led me to it this year. And at the beginning of the year, of every year, I set a goal list for myself of things to accomplish for the year. And that was the first thing I put on my list. This year, I want to complete my first triathlon. And so I made it happen.
Well, okay, Unc. We got to give Unc a little credit, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So Unc's telling you what got me was the physique and the stats.
Yeah,
But I
yeah.
appreciate your Unc for giving you credit for where you were able to get your body
Yep, yep.
and the stats that you were able to produce. Now, I don't know if triathlon is the true test of endurance because endurance sport is one of these things that, depending on the distance, depending on what is happening, yes, most triathletes will be like, yeah, we are the true test because we do hard things.
Right,
But I
right.
appreciate your uncle recognizing that effort and you taking the challenge. So you're a personal trainer
Mhm.
and you also, it's Savage Race, if I'm understanding, is that a running race?
It's an obstacle course race. So it's running. It's like a Spartan, essentially. It's
Is
just
that with mud and stuff?
yeah, you do have some mud in it.
Mm.
It's similar. It's pretty much the same thing as a Spartan, but I think Spartan is a little bit more intense than a Savage Race is. And then it has the elements of the mud too, so you kind of have like the elements of a Tough Mudder in it as well. You just don't get as dirty as you would for a Tough Mudder. So yeah,
Okay.
it's kind of like how Kinetic, they're a brand. Spartan's a brand. Savage is also a brand, but it's just a different type of obstacle course race.
Interesting, interesting. Okay,
Hmm.
so endurance has been a part of who you have are for a while by doing these different races. And so
Hmm.
you took the jump, you saw the posters around the YMCA,
Hmm.
and you said, this is the year. The timing is right. Everything is
Hmm.
lined up for me to get to this. Everything has lined up just right for me to try my hand at a triathlon.
Hmm.
So you see the signs, you sign up. What was
Hmm.
going through your mind as you sign up? Are you a swimmer? Are you a cyclist? Where did you feel like was holding you back prior to signing up to join the team this year?
Nothing was holding me back per se. I'm definitely a runner though. So to answer your question, I'm a runner. I ran track in high school, played basketball and ran track in high school. When I got to college, I didn't take my athleticism to college, but I did do ROTC. Obviously, that's part of the test for ROTC is to make sure you're maintaining your physical fitness, make sure you're continuing to run. Um, I didn't get back heavy into running consistently because I had a gap. I had some gap years where I wasn't running anymore, and that was kind of like between the later part of my early 20s and the early part of my late 20s where I wasn't really running much anymore. It was so when I and this is a whole other story, but I lived in China for 3 years. When I came back from China in 2020, um, during the pandemic is when I started running again, because that's really all we could do to get outside and while we were quarantining. So that's kind of how I started running again during the peak of the pandemic. And so yeah, from 2020 to now, I just kind of started running again, and I kind of got that momentum back. But to directly answer your question, I'm a runner by nature. I hadn't ridden a bike in years. I want to say maybe middle or high school, possibly, probably, yeah, probably middle school. Because I don't recall myself riding a bike much in high school. But yeah, middle school, I think may have been the last time I rode a bike. And then I thought I knew how to swim. I thought I knew how to swim until I joined Y Tri, or right before I joined Y Tri, we had our trial swim where we had to see, how fast I could swim at 300. And I swam that first 50 and I was gassed. I was done. I said, wait, you want me to swim a 300? I just swim a 50. That's it. And I'm feeling like this already. So it was a humbling, the swimming part. And from what I understand, that's a lot of people's humbling, that's their humbling point.
Hmm.
But that was definitely the point where I said, wow, I need a lot of practice on this. So I think I was a little fearful at first of the swimming portion because I'm like, man, I really have a lot to learn before May and June. And so yeah, I wasn't a swimmer. I learned a lot within those 3 to 4 months with that. And like I said, with the biking, I had to get myself back in that mindset of biking. Obviously, you don't forget how to bike, but even with biking, you have to build up your cardiovascular endurance for that particular sport. And I had to get comfortable with riding outside again. And I remember the first time I hit that hill. I remember when I first got my bike and I got my first real steep hill incline. I had this feeling of euphoria. I said, man, I remember what this used to feel like riding down this steep hill and getting that adrenaline rush from just riding down and feeling that breeze hit your face. I said, but I forgot what that felt like. I feel amazing right now. So yeah, to answer your question, running's my cream of the crop. I, Swimming was my humbling experience. Biking, I just had to remind myself what it felt like to bike, you know?
You said a lot in there, and I'm going to
Mm.
try to pick apart some of those things.
Okay.
I, I love how you said you did a 50 and was gassed, and you was like, I don't think I could finish this
Gas.
anymore. A lot of people are like that when they're doing their time trial.
Mm.
Um, and for those of you who are listening, it's a 300-meter to just basically determine where you will be in your swim groups. So
Right.
you'll be grouped with people who are like time wise as you so that you guys can have swim practice.
Mhm.
But China. So you went over to China for 3 years and came back well, we were in the height of the pandemic then.
Yep.
I'm assuming that's one of the reasons you had to come back. But what was that like? And were you physically active over there? Because I'm sure like you have outside. What part of China were you in?
Yeah. So that's another element that I didn't even share. So yes, I lived in China from 2017 to 2020. I was not physically fit out there at all. Like I would attempt, I would have moments, a spurts of time where I would say, okay, I'm gonna get back in the gym. I'm gonna get back in the gym. I had a gym membership. I would be consistent for like maybe 3 to 4 weeks, and then I fall off again. I think China was less about me trying to maintain a physical schedule and more about me tapping into other parts of myself. So I was out there
Yeah.
by way of teaching English and English literature. And so that was my main job there. And of course I teach now as well. So teach education. I've been in education for 8 years now. So that I did 3 years of education there. But also aside from that, I was doing a lot of freelance media work out there too. So my background is media. So I did a lot of I did a lot of many different photo shoots out there. I used to do I used to do promotion. I used to create like promotional advertisements and different videos for different like nightclubs and different organizations out in China as well in my part time aside from the teaching. And then the music part that you mentioned earlier, I used to also perform at different places out there as well, different nightclubs. I perform in China. I was in Shanghai, by the way. So I would perform in different places all around Shanghai, Beijing, I think Guangzhou. I did a couple shows down there. Philippines, I did some shows down there. So I would travel all around and do shows too. So I think I was tapped more into that side of me, and I wasn't
Mhm.
really as focused as much on the physical until I got back. You know.
So I was going to ask you, I'm glad you shared that you were in Shanghai. I've
Mhm,
only been to Beijing. And so
mhm.
I can only imagine how you were probably very popular over there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Very, very popular.
for
You
sure.
are very, people will stop you in the streets and just want to talk to you, based off of what you look like
Yeah,
and what you
yeah,
represent. And so, okay. And it's interesting to me that when you were there, you were not active, but like so many of us, we start and stop our fitness journeys.
for sure.
And to see you come back in 2020 and use running as a way to free your mind and escape what was happening globally,
Mhm,
you picked back running, but not just that, but you became a personal trainer and a certified personal trainer and nutrition coach.
mhm.
Let's dig into that because I think what resonates with me is I know I've had to stop and start throughout my life. Hell, I
Yeah,
mean, shucks, even with triathlon, you go through your highs and your lows,
yeah,
especially when you've been in the sport for so long. And so you have moments where you're on and doing several races a year, and ones when you just be like, I can do one race and that's it. So I'm sure people can um, resonate with your story of
mhm,
how you went from stopping starting your fitness journey, coming back, and now becoming a fitness coach
mhm,
and certified personal trainer.
mhm,
So, my question I have for you is
mhm,
connecting the dots. What
mhm,
made you go from stopping and starting your fitness journey
mhm,
in 2017 to 2020
mhm.
to now becoming a personal trainer?
Gotcha,
That's
gotcha.
the paradigm shift is very different.
It's
But
yeah.
so take us through that journey.
So, okay, it's funny that you mentioned that. I did not plan on coming back and even becoming a trainer, to be honest with you. Yeah, even though I had a pretty solid foundation in that, my plan when I came back from China was to actually come back and to get back into my field of media. That was the plan. Um, I didn't plan to get into education again. I did 1 year of teaching before I left China, did 3 years out there. So that was 4 years total. And my plan was to not go back into the classroom because that's not initially what I wanted, what I thought I wanted anyway.
Mhm.
So my plan wasn't to be in education. My plan was also not to be a trainer. I fell into that because when I came back during the pandemic, I had been out of the media industry for at that point for 4 years. So I was gone. So when I did my resume and when I was applying for jobs, I didn't have any recent industry experience. That's one. Two, during the pandemic, it was as you know, it was hard trying to find work during that time, especially me coming back home. I couldn't find any work at the time. And coming back from China, I had to come back because my daughter actually was born, and so I came back to make sure I was here for her. Obviously, I got to be here for my baby. Um, and I can't. During that moment when I came back, I remember flights. There were only 2 flights coming out per week from China to the U.S. because they had to shut down everything because of the pandemic. And normally, as you know, because you said you went to Beijing, the flights for China weren't really that expensive. You can get a ticket from Shanghai from the US to Shanghai round trip for like 700, maybe 1100, 1200, 12 1100 to 1200 max. Not that expensive. But as you can imagine, there's this only 2 flights coming out per week from Shanghai or from all around China to the US. They hiked up those prices. So I ended up paying like 4,000 something dollars. And I remember I had saved up a lot of money and I ended up having to pay like a few thousand to get back. And so that took a lot out of my savings that I planned on utilizing to set the foundation for us when I got back for my daughter and for myself. Um, and then I couldn't find work. So for a few months, I went through, and this actually leads to how I started training and how I started my organization. I went through a serious depression coming back. A serious depression because I wasn't doing well financially. Um, I was going through some family issues at the time. And then just even transitioning coming back was a total shift, mental shift. So um, running actually became my outlet. Running became my outlet. And that was before I got reconnected with God, by the way, which we can also talk about later. My only outlet at the time was the physical and the thought of my daughter needs me. My daughter needs me, and this is my outlet too. So those are my lights in the moment. My lights is my physicality and my daughter, and
Mm.
so anyway, going back to the question to answer, um, I ended up getting back into being a waiter part time while I waited to figure out what my next step was going to be. One day I was on the way to work at the restaurant I was working at, and as I was riding in the car, I heard a radio advertisement that said, "Do you like to work out?" And I'm talking to the radio. I'm like, "Yeah, I like working out." They say, "Would you like to make money working out?" Like, hell yeah, I want to make money working out. Tell me more. So they're like, um, if you like working out, if you like to make money working out, you should sign up to be a personal trainer with ISSA, and we can get you certified to become a personal trainer. I'm like, okay, tell me more. I like this. Tell me more. so, long story short, I heard the advertisement. I was inspired by it. Whoever they picked to record the advertisement had amazing energy and inspired me to reach out to ISSA to get certified to be a trainer. And I sent the text, got the information about the program, finished, and it was a self-paced certified personal trainer program. It was a self-paced nutritionist program, and I finished it within. Let me see. I started the course. I think October of 2020, and I think I finished it by. I think I finished it within a month and a half. I finished that joint quick because I was ready to get started. And so I finished it real quick, and then I got hired at the Y within I think a week or two after finishing that certification. Immediately after I finished my got the certification, I immediately reached out to the Y, and I ended up getting hired by the Y. I think the first or second week of December 2020. So that's how I got into training. It wasn't because I actually wanted it at the time. It was because I fell into it because at the time that was the only opportunity I had at the time, considering there was really no other option.
So you maximize an opportunity off of a radio ad where you and the radio
We're having a
that
conversation.
that had a conversation, and it was
Yes.
determined that this was the next path forward. So here we are 6 years later. You're doing your first triathlon. What
Mhm.
was it like when you answered the ad and went to your first orientation meeting?
Um, at the Y, right? At the orientation meeting with her.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for triathlon, yes.
For the try. Um, I didn't make that connection. I never made the connection from me starting out, having that conversation with the radio, becoming a trainer, and then 6 years later going to orientation for the try. But since you bring it up that way, I do think it's divine. It's divine. It's once again, it's out of my understanding. I feel like a lot of times we try to have an understanding about things, and sometimes we look back and we can see why things happened the way they did. And I can look back. I can look back and say, man, I understand why now I started running as an outlet. I understand now why I couldn't find work at the time in my field, you know. And another story too is weeks later, not weeks later, I started at the Y December 2020. I think the summer of 2021, this guy I know who has his own media business reached out to me and told me that my school that I work out now was looking for a mass media teacher. Matter of fact, it wasn't even the summer, it was the spring. It was like 3 or 4 months later. 3 or 4 months later, he said, "Hey, I know this lady who is looking for a high school mass media teacher, and I recommended her to you because I know how good you are in your craft. And so I recommended, you to her, and she should be reaching out within the next few days." She did. I, I I'm at work. I'm at work and during my break period in between my clients, and I get interviewed on the spot virtually for this job I work at right now, teaching mass media. So not only am I in education again, but I'm teaching what my background is in media, divine. It's just all divine. So, once again, going back to the initial question, back to the orientation, everything lined up the way it was supposed to. I literally everything that I had some sort of background in, I'm doing now. And it's all aligned with purpose, God's purpose, not mine, as you talked about earlier. It's all aligned. And I'm just grateful to be able to be in this moment in life where I am doing all the things that I know not only enjoy, but I have somewhat of a background in, and it's all it's all for divine reasoning.
I think synchronous is the right word. Um, where it just feels like you're flowing. So I understand what it means to be full circle. I also want to hit on a word that you shared when you were telling us about your journey back to when you came back to America after being over in China during the pandemic and not being able to get work and not being able to provide for your family. But it's this D word that we don't really like to talk about. And although we just came out of Mental Health Awareness Month in May, I want to hit on depression
Yep.
because I think we don't talk about it enough. And so, what were some tools that you used to get you out of depression, external of, we know you ran um, to kind of clear your mind and you had to do what you had to do for your daughter, but how do you even stay from going back in depression current day?
Well, now it's it's so funny. Once again, everything's connected. I have another friend who has a podcast as well, and she's actually doing hers on mental health. And she reached out to me yesterday and asked me because she said that one of her episodes, she's directly talking about that. But she reached out and asked me what are four things that I do, three to four things that I do when I feel moments of depression or stress or whatever. And so I literally just yesterday I sent her a message and I told her, pray is my number one. Two, I read the scripture, but also every Saturday I'm dedicated to I'm part of the Ms. Ministry, and every Saturday morning we do a Bible study, and I'm committed to that. And it's virtual. We don't have to go in person. It's virtual, but no matter what I'm doing, I join that every single Saturday because I'm not only reading the scripture, but I'm surrounded by other brothers who need that uplifting as well. We lift each other up. We sharpen each other. We all have we're all in a safe space to be vulnerable with each other, share things that's going on in our lives, and figure out how we can help each other out. And so pray, scripture, and being a part of that community. Three, um, exercise, and four, journal. I journal pretty much every day too. So all four of those things, the spiritual, the journal will be the mental, and then the physical will be the exercise, training. And so that's what it looks like for me now. Back then, like I said, for me, because I didn't yet have I wasn't yet reconnected with God, and I kind of lost my route. And so at that time, my lights at that time were really only exercise and the thought that I need to be here for my daughter. Those were things that kept me afloat during that time period. You know, I'm not in therapy now, but I also had a 2-year period where I was in therapy as well too. So that helped. So between 2023 to 2025, I was in therapy.
Therapy is highly recommended,
Yeah.
along with, praying and being around other believers and people who are like minded who can sharpen you and strengthen you. So I love how before your anchors were just exercising your daughter, and now your anchors are rooted in something a little bit deeper
Mhm,
and that technically can't fail you when you trust and leave it to God. So
mhm, mhm,
I am all for that.
mhm.
I think what I want to how I want to transition this in segment is we're going to go back to your journey of triathlon because I think triathlon has so many different meanings, and again we transition often. And so you're training for this year. Take us through your training for this year and your
Mhm.
first race that you did, which was, I think, on Mother's Day.
Yep, it was on
On
Mother's Day.
Mother's Day, your
It
first race
was.
was Mother's Day 2026.
Mhm.
And your mother, let's give her a shout out
It
because
was
she
there
is the reason that you're here on this podcast. If
for
it
sure.
wasn't for your mom talking to me, and I don't even know why your mom and I started talking, because I don't think she know me and I didn't know you, but
Yeah.
your mom was like, yes, my son is this. And I was like, okay. Like, because I was having a whole bad day. Like my race that particular day was just everything that could go wrong went
Went wrong.
absolutely wrong. And not just wrong, but wrong in a huge way.
Mhm.
And so, but it was something that your mom, I don't know what it was, but she was really proud of you. And somehow she wanted to connect with me. And again, I don't know why, maybe just another familiar face.
Mhm.
But I'm glad that she did. And so tell us about your training leading up to this, your first race in May.
Well, first thing I want to say is, like, I, I am not the type of person to broadcast myself too much. I don't broadcast myself. I try to keep as low key as possible with everything I have going on. My mom is definitely my spokesperson. She talks a lot about me. And so I think, it's a good thing, obviously, because, I'm able to be connected with people a lot of times. And even through my organization, we didn't talk about yet, but maybe we could talk about at a later point. No Plateau Zone. She talks a lot about the organization too, and through her, I'm able to meet a lot of people as well beyond the people that I already meet. And so, like you said, big shout out to my mom. She came and supported on Mother's Day, on Mother's Day for the try down at Lake Anna. And she's always my big support system anyway, but she was an extremely big support system on that day. And so, yes, big shout out to my mom and the love that she has for her son is extremely. I'm extremely grateful for her. But that training process was intense. Having to wake up. I live in Upper Marlboro. I'm coming to DC to train with the Y Tribe group 3 or 4 days a week. And not counting the days I'm not with them. Obviously, I'm training on days when I'm not with them as well. I think I was training like 5 to 6 days a week, for this. But I'm with the Y Try group 3 out of those 5 to 6 days. And so waking up 4:45 every morning to come into the city to be at the Y at 6 o'clock in the morning, and if the first, couple weeks that was an adjustment. But I got adjusted. And and because I work at the school during the day, because I'm at the Y Monday through Wednesday in the evenings, there would be times I would be really tired because Monday through Wednesday, I wouldn't get as much sleep, between leaving the Y and then coming back the next day for training. And so I would have to be very intentional on the days when I'm not training at the Y to make sure that I'm getting enough sleep on like Thursdays, from Thursday to the weekend. And so, just balancing sleep, trying to make sure I'm eating well. Like I started meal prepping every day. I don't really, I wasn't really eating out as much anymore. Well, I don't really eat out a lot anyway, but I was even more intentional about meal prepping every Sunday to prepare me for the week and making sure I got my clothes laid out for the week. The night or every Sunday evening. And so it's funny because my mom, she would joke and say, Brandon, you so disciplined. She tried to clown on me about it, about my discipline. But I know deep down a part of her admires the discipline that I was having during this time. Like I was serious about it, you know. But yeah, so yeah, it took a lot of discipline, it took a lot of preparation, it took a lot of mental fortitude, and I'm just happy that I did it. It showed me the level, it showed me the depths of how far I can really push myself to show up the way that I did throughout, and when we got to the actual race days.
So let's talk about race day. This is your first
Mhm,
race. Let's talk
mhm,
about your swim, the transition, bike transition, and then coming in through the run. Um, and then we want to compare it to your second race in your first year to
mhm,
see what were the improvements and how did you feel between the first race and your second race?
mhm.
Same sprint distance, Um, Take us through that.
Um, the race day so the first race day, Lake Anna, I was obviously very nervous that day, and it's funny because I think you asked me before we even started this, am I nervous? I'm not really nervous when it comes to being interviewed, so in moments where I'm really nervous, I'm really nervous because I don't get nervous easily. Um, but yeah, first race day, I was nervous because I'm like, man, how am I gonna do in this swim? I think we had like one open water swim leading up to that. And so I don't feel like I was quite ready at the time. But and it's different. As you know, it's different swimming in open water at a lake or in a river compared to training at a swimming pool. The waters are murkier. You have to deal with the currents of the lake or the river. You have to deal with other people swimming right next to you and bumping into you, swatting you on your head, swatting you on your leg. So I was nervous. I didn't know what to fully expect the first time. And then also, we have to wear our swim caps when we compete. I had my swim cap. Obviously, I have locks, so I have a lot of hair to put underneath my swim cap. So I wear a special one. I wear an extra extra large swim cap. They had me wear the red one because I'm a new swimmer, and because I was a little nervous the first time, I went ahead and wore it. But it was like suctioning over my other one. So what ended up happening is once I got like maybe 100 meters through the swim, my caps came off. So, so what ended up happening is my hair was in my face the whole rest of the swim, and I just kind of had to deal with it every time I would do rotate the stroke. My hair was getting in my face. I would stop at the kayak to try to tie my hair up, and it happened. It worked for a moment, but then after a while, after another few meters, my hair came loose again because the water, quite naturally, that's what happens. So, it was a little stressful that first time. It was stressful that first time. I was extremely tired after completing the first one, but I was just happy I completed it because I didn't know if I was going to complete it. So I finished the first swim. Once my feet hit the ground, I was good. Um, now fast forward to Jamestown, the one that we had on what day was that? That was the 7th of June. I knew what to expect. I knew what I needed. I knew I needed to lay out everything the way I wanted them to be laid out in order of when I come back from the swim and when I get my bike, when I transition from the bike to the run. So I had everything laid out in order. I made sure I ordered a extra extra large yellow swim cap so they could see me and that so I didn't have to worry about my cap falling off. By then I had finished 3 more open swims, so I was comfortable. We did 2 swims at Sandy Point, and I had already experienced that one at Lake Anna. So when I came into that Jamestown one, my nerves didn't kick in at all. I was good. I'm like, I got everything laid out. I drank my tea this morning. I prayed this morning. I said I got my yellow swim cap. It's not gonna come off. I'm cool. And so I came into that second race and I did a lot better. Now, obviously, I still have a lot more to improve on in terms of my time. Um, in terms of like just my endurance, my muscular endurance, and that comes with more practice. But my swim time came down from a 37 minutes to like 24:95 that second time. So it dropped down by like 12 minutes.
Wow.
So I improved a lot, and so I was very much so grateful that I took that time to prepare myself. Yeah.
I love it. So
Mhm.
now take us to the bike of each.
The bike, the first time, well, Lake Anna's a lot more hilly than Jamestown. So the bike ride, because I had just gotten out of the water and I was exhausted the first time, I got onto the bike exhausted. And then we got to start off with that big hill going up. And so I think my pace time was 15 miles per hour, 15.8 or something like that. And yeah, I was exhausted. I felt better than being in the water, but I was still exhausted. Now fast forward to Jamestown, it's theirs is more flat. Their terrain is more flat, so I did a lot better. I wasn't as winded because I strategically prepared myself for that swim, so I came out good. And so I think my, miles per hour the second go around improved a lot as well. It was 19.3 miles per hour. So that improved a lot. Even the run in the first run that I did well. I think I finished it in 23 something. The second go around, I finished in 19:44, 19 minutes 44 seconds. So I improved on that too. So I think just because I was very intentional about, okay, now I know where I fell short the first time. I have a few weeks to prepare myself mentally. I have ways to prepare myself strategically of how I want things to be laid out, what things I need to make sure I have prepared, in terms of, the tangible things. So I was ready. I was ready to go by the time Jamestown came around. And I felt at the end of that race, I felt amazing. I felt great. And I was proud that I was able to prepare myself the way I did.
And what was
Mhm.
it like to finish?
Oh man, it felt amazing. And it felt even more amazing because I had my mom, my niece, and my daughter there. Like to see them at that finish line, it brought me a great sense of joy and fulfillment. To know
Nice.
all that hard work that I put into the year, to see them there at the end of it all was great. And my daughter was there with me through some of those training days too. Matter of fact, during spring break, I had her doing spring break, the whole spring break. And she came with me. I had her wake up. She woke up with me for the training days as well to go to the Y. And luckily we have some great people within that Y Tri community. Since since I work at the Y, I know everybody who works there, and they were able to watch her when I was going out for my runs and stuff like that. On the days I would swim, she would be there on the pool side cheering me on as I'm swimming. So she saw
Oh.
me. She saw me during the training process, and so for her to see me on that swim day, I'm sure that I mean on that Jamestown race day, I'm sure she felt happy to see that too because she saw it throughout.
And so
So
now that you and this is a perfect segue because I wanted to hit on your daughter because it's, we're celebrating Father's Day.
mhm,
Um, your daughter has now seen you train for something and step out
mhm,
of your comfort zone. What are
mhm,
the lessons you want her to learn from watching you pursue big goals and trying things and being scared?
mhm. Yeah, my daughter. I always like for her to see me in all of my elements. I like for her to have her own elements, like she's in dance, she's been in gymnastics, not in gymnastics now, but she's been in gymnastics. She at her school, she does musicals and plays. And I like for her to figure out her lane too, but I'm very intentional about her seeing me in my elements as well, just in case she at some point decides to do any of those things too. In case she decides she wants to run, in case she decides she wants to be into music, in case she decides she wants to, oh, she's artistic as well. She loves painting and stuff like that. She's really good at taking photos of my phone. Some pictures she gets on my phone, I'm like, man, girl, you good with that camera? And so I like for her to see me in that element too, so that she knows, oh, my daddy knows how to do that. Let me pick his brain. Let me pick his brain. And I'm intentional about like getting her every now and then. She'll come out for a little run with me too, and I'll slow down to her pace, and I'll run with her. She made me so proud last year in November because when I host my events, my hikes and my walk runs to my organization, she's so used to me facilitating these events and seeing me run that back in November, she volunteered to run herself at one of my events, and it was a 5K. She ran. She said, "Daddy, I want to run too." I said, "Okay, cool. Let's do it." And she ended up running 2 miles of that 5K nonstop. Nonstop at 5 years. She was 5 at the time, 5 years old, and
Wow.
ran the whole 2 miles. And then fast forward, after seeing that, obviously, I'm extremely proud to see that. After seeing that, I think last month, right before she turned 6, I signed her up for her first 10K, and we ran it to I mean, not 10K, 5K, 5K. And
I was about to say, wait a minute.
5K.
Whew.
But
Phew.
but
I'm
we
glad
ran
it's a
into
5K.
yeah, yeah, 5K. But we ran it together, and, it was a challenge for her. It was a challenge at her for her. Me and my, um, former supervisor, a really good friend, Dahia, we ended up running it together. Yeah,
Dahia.
Dahia, yep, you know Dahia Johnson.
I
Yep, yep. She's my former supervisor, but she's like my big sister. She's like a really good friend of mine, and all 3 of us ran it together. We signed up for it together, and we pushed Carmela as she completed the 5K, and, it came with a little tears because she didn't wanna finish, but we pushed her through, and I told her, I said, "Carmela, I'm proud of you," and I said, "Daddy's not gonna push you through a 5K anymore for a while." I said, "But you've shown me that you can endure, running." And so I told her, I'm gonna push her to maybe start doing like little small competitions, like little 0.75 miles to kind of get her endurance up, to get her comfortable. 1 mile, 1 mile, one
Oh,
mile,
'cause I
one
don't know if
mile.
y'all heard what I heard, 75 miles. I'm like,
The
"What are
point
you doing
seventy
to
five,
this girl?"
point 75, point 75. Yeah, just little short races to, build up her endurance, build up her enjoyment for it, And so I told her, I said, all right, no more 5Ks, no more 5Ks. Let's just focus now on the shorter distances. And then in the future, we can work back up to a 5K. But at least I know you can do it. You can do it. And so, yeah, I'm just intentional. I'm intentional about making sure she sees me through that process. And I'm
Yeah.
and I'm also cultivating her in her lanes as well, and also pushing her to also be the greatest she can be in the things that she enjoys too, you know?
Mm. So speaking of, she's seen you at your No Plateau Zone. What is No Plateau? And can people join? How can they get involved? Is it a virtual? Is it in person? Give us
Mhm.
all the deets.
So, No Plateau Zone, going back to that D word, depression, it started because when I first became a trainer, I remember I was in the process of trying to build my own brand, and I couldn't figure out a name yet. I couldn't figure out a name. I ended up creating it. I ended up coming up with the name No Plateau Zone because back in April, and this is just the backstory of how it started, and then I can get to the information on how, people can join. Back in April of 2021, I did a 5K at the National Harbor. Got first in the 5K, but that's not the impressive part. The impressive part is the guy behind me. The guy behind me, and I was 29 at the time, by the way. I was 29 at the time, and I was going through this quarter life crisis where I thought, man, I'm about to be 30. I won't be able to do the things I could do in my 20s. You know, what am I going to do? The guy behind me in second place was 71 years old. 71. And this is out of 100. This is like 200 people signed up, 200 some people signed up. Dude behind me got second place. It was at that moment that I realized there really is no plateau to what we are capable of doing. And in the moment I said that, there's no plateau. And then that's when it clicked. That's what I want to name my organization. I want to name it No Plateau Zone. Like in this zone, in this mental zone, I want to put myself in this mental zone of there's never a plateau of things I could accomplish in life, whether it's physical, whether it's creatively, whether it's I don't know, in every realm. There's just no plateau. You're always striving for that next step that next accomplishment, right? And there's no plateau until we leave this earth. And so I created that organization in July of 2021. It started off as it just being a physical training and nutritionist organization, but then I ended up venturing out into making it kind of like a run club, and I would put on, running events. And then it branched out from just running to walk running. Then it branched out to not just walk running, but to hiking. And not just walk running and hiking, but now we also do community events. So we've done like when the last year in the fall, we did a Potomac cruise. We did a wellness cruise on the Potomac. I have an uncle who has a boat, and he bought his boat up, or he rented a boat at one of the docks, and we did the boat cruise. And so, and then we've done, I think not last year, but the year before that, we did a clothing and canned good drive, um, and then donated some of the items to Children's Hospital. Um, but And also, I'm sorry, I stepped over this one, the most important part. When I talked earlier about me using the running and the fitness as my way of releasing from the stress and depression, that's another reason why I came up with the name too. Besides the fact that I met that guy, you know, when we're in those states, when we're feeling low and depression and anxiety and stress, pulling ourselves out of those moments, right? It became centered. The organization became centered around mental health and how fitness, how having the right nutrition, how being around positive people, how being in nature, how all those things could all attribute to positive mental health. And so,
Mm,
whenever I have my events, I also make sure that, they're donated, that they're charitable events, and whatever charitable money we receive, part of the money also goes to mental health organizations around the DMV as well.
awesome. So, real
So
quick,
mhm.
is it a can people join or is it virtual or is it just in person?
Both. So mostly in person. Every now and then we'll get people to join virtually, but a lot of times we have them in person, and we have them in different places all around the DMV. So we'll sometimes have events at Jones Point Park. We'll sometimes have them at Rock Creek Park. We'll sometimes have them at Haynes Point, just wherever. And people can learn more about it. You can follow us on Instagram, No Plateau Zone on Instagram, noplateauzone.com. Facebook, we're on Facebook, No Plateau Zone, and yeah, that's where you can find us and learn more. And if you reach out to us through Instagram or through the website, we can add you to our email list as well,
Awesome. So as we're wrapping up, because I want to be respectful of our time,
for sure.
we have I want to go into rapid fire because we don't let people leave before we do that.
Mhm,
And I had one quick question. If you could wrap this up really quickly in a nice bow for us,
mhm,
what has it been like, and what would you say to someone who think that they cannot do a triathlon?
mhm.
What would you recommend or say to them?
I would say just sign up if I'm being honest. I mean, it's as simple as that. I think it sounds like, what do you mean just sign up? A lot of times for me, when I feel like this seems like a difficult task, I just sign up because I know that if I sign up, I have no choice but to do it. For me, so I say just sign up, just try it, and then learn along the way. I think that's the biggest thing about life in general is you just showing up, trying it, and then if you fall short, if you feel like you're not qualified for it, you learn things along the way.
Awesome.
Mhm.
Brandon Woolfolk, thank you so much for being here. We're
Thank you
going to
so
move on
much,
to a
Miss
little
Shonda.
bit of rapid fire, a little bit of
Okay.
fun, get people to see you in a different way.
Mhm,
And we're going to just start out. You're
mhm,
also a music artist. We didn't get to touch on that a lot,
mhm.
but how does your creativity influence your approach to fitness and life? Rapid fire,
That's
too, by the
that's
way.
a great question. I guess in every way, because I'm a creative, I'm very abstract in thinking, very abstract in performance. Yeah.
Awesome. And are there any songs or artists that fuel your workouts?
Yes. So actually, just in Jamestown, I was listening to Jay-Z Blueprint 3, the Blueprint 3 album. So
Solid.
Jay-Z pumps me up. Um, who else? Project Pat gives me energy.
Oh,
Project Pat.
excuse me. You're taking me back to my school's college
Yeah,
days. Don't let me do that.
exactly. Yeah, but no, you get the vibes. You get the vibes.
I'm so
Jay-Z, Project
sophisticated
Pat.
ratchet. I love ratchet all day.
Yep, yep, yep.
But I
So
love
yeah,
Jesus too, so you can, catch
there
me
you
with a
go.
bop. Okay.
Yeah, yep.
Your rapid fire. Why do communities like Why Try matter?
Because your community, when you're in a community, you sharpen each other. In one way, I may be weak. Somebody else may be weak and need improvement, and we help each other along the way, give each other, tips and strategies along the way.
If you could train with anyone, living or historical,
Mhm.
who would it be and why?
If I can train with any, oh, that's a good question. Oh, maybe Kevin Hart. Maybe that's it. Maybe Kevin Hart. I don't know. That's random. That's the only person I could think of in this moment who I know trains. Let me see. Yeah,
He
that's
does
what
run. That's a good answer.
yeah, that's a Kevin Hart. He's the only person I can think of. So yeah, that's my answer, Kevin Hart.
We'll go with that. What's
Yeah.
harder, parenting or triathlon?
Oh, I don't think parenting is hard. You know what? That's a really good answer. You know what? I would say parenting, only because that's a consistent thing. You know, triathlons are for seasons, then you have all season, on season. You're in parenting mode through all seasons. And even when my daughter turns 18, I'm still gonna be on season. so, so I say parenting, and not hard in the sense where I can't do it, just hard where like it's this is something I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life, being a parent. So
Favorite post race or workout meal?
post workout meal, uh, I don't know, but I do know after Jamestown I had Waffle House, and I enjoyed that meal. I don't
Okay.
know.
Did you get something scattered and covered or
Nah,
chunked?
I got me that nice waffle I forgot the name of that meal, but it comes with
The All
waffle, a hash
American.
brown, all American. That's what I
I'm
got.
from Georgia, so I know
Yeah,
about the Waffle
yeah.
House.
I got the all American, and I crashed out on the all American meal. But my meals, they vary, so I don't really have a favorite per se. But that
Okay.
Waffle House meal after Jamestown was it.
It hit. And we don't let anyone leave without answering this question, and you probably haven't done a distance long enough to answer it.
Mhm.
But we'll switch it up for you. I usually ask, do you pee on the bike or get off and take a proper pee break? But it sounds like you may have an answer. Do you have an answer to that?
Well, the first one I had, nah, I didn't. I peed. I had to go to the porta potty. The second one, I'm laughing because the one in Jamestown, I had to pee after that swim, but I didn't have enough time. I had the time. I just didn't want to stop before getting on my bike. So I pushed through. I said, man, F it. I just went ahead and got on my bike. And I finished the rest of that entire race having to use the bathroom. Yeah, I didn't stop
Well,
at
we
all.
got our answer, ladies and
I
gentlemen.
didn't stop at
Well,
all.
well, thank you again, Brandon, for being here. We have this saying on Try Beginner's Luck: whenever you try, you always win. And we truly believe that. If you've loved this podcast and love what we're doing, be sure to follow us on every major platform. And this podcast is on all the major platforms, including YouTube and Substack. With that said, my name is Mashonda Miles, also known as Mashonda Shines. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there, to you, Brandon, and to those who
Thank
are
you.
listening. And with that said, we are out. Peace. Bye,
Peace. Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you, Mashonda.
Thank you for tuning in and listening to this episode. We need your help so we can continue to try at TBL. So for more information on where you can find and subscribe to this podcast, visit www.trybeginnersluck.com. And don't forget, whenever you try Beginner's Luck, you always win.